Hey guys, so it's time for my Hall of Fame binder player of the week. If you see the title, you see it's Willie McCovey. I planned on doing McCovey last week, but then with Ryan Sandberg's passing, I decided to do him instead, but was hanging on to doing McCovey this week. I had a few weeks in a row where it felt like I was doing players that were questionable, and I wanted to do a player that there was really no question about it, and Willie McCovey came to mind. I've talked about this a little bit before, is that I'm trying to stray away from just doing players that I have lots of cards from. Um, Frankly, I'm going to end up just doing players who have a lot of cards in the 80s, and so I didn't want to do that. And so I don't have a lot of McCovey cards. I have four of his cards, despite his lengthy career. He played over 4 decades. He played in '59, and his final game was in 1980. So long career, quite an amazing career. So let's talk through that just a little bit. Of course, he debuted for the Giants in 1959. He was the Rookie of the Year in 1959. Really interesting, his debut into the major leagues. He was batting against Hall of Fame pitcher Robin Roberts, and he went 4 for 4. So he did quite well that day. Got a couple RBIs, a couple doubles, I think, and a couple singles, if I'm remembering correctly. But 4 for 4 against the Hall of Fame pitcher in your rookie debut, that's pretty good. He, of course, early on in his career, if you know where the Giants were at that time, he battled for starting position because he played first base. And Orlando Cepeda, another Hall of Famer, who I just did recently, was also first baseman. So they kind of went back and forth a little bit there, but McCovey ended up kind of taking over that position shortly after, just a few years later, a couple years later. It didn't take him very long. He had just an incredible career. He was 3 times during his career, he was the home run leader. He ended up making it into the 500 club. He ended up hitting 521 home runs in his career. So very impressive. Bob Gibson said that he was the scariest hitter in baseball. Now, if Bob Gibson says that you're the scariest hitter in baseball, you are. Of course, they called him Stretch. He's a big guy. I was listening to an interview with somebody who was a kid during McCovey's years, and he was a kind of one of the clubhouse kids. He helped along with the Giants, and he remembers the first time he met McCovey, just how huge he was. He was just so big. And the funny thing is he was that way for Major League Baseball players as well. Adults considered McCovey to be a large man, so he was stretched quite a career, as I said. He was the MVP in 1969, and he struggled a few years after that. He kind of suffered some injuries, and I was listening to an interview today with someone who wrote a book about him called A Giant Among Giants. I haven't read or listened to the book, just was listening to the interview, and he was talking about how there were times when he was in so much pain he was in tears, and so you can imagine that in that day you still went out and played, and you played every day, and so he would go out and play, and just his career wasn't going as well, and so he ended up getting traded. He got traded to the Padres, played for them for a few years. He had a pretty good year, his first year there. That kind of dwindled the next couple of years. He ended up going to the A's for just a short time in 1976. He played for both the Padres and the Athletics during that season. Didn't do really well in either one of them, and ended up getting traded back to the Giants, which was really where he belongs. He and suddenly it feels like if you look at his numbers and stuff, he just kind of came back to life. He had comeback player of the year in 1977 playing for the Giants. Just an incredible career. There are lots of things to love about McCovey. One of the things that I think is really cool, he passed away a few years ago, but they actually have an award that they give out. The Giants do to this day. They have an award that they give out in his honor. It's called the Willie Mack Award, and it's for the most inspirational Giant. And so when he was alive, he would present that award, and you can imagine as a player, if you get the award for the most inspirational Giant, and you get the award handed to you by a Giant. A giant among giants, Willie McCovey. Just an incredible life, and I like that. I like hearing that about players. That it not just he wasn't just a great player, though he was, but there was a lot more to it than that. Of course, he got to play along some greats. You know, you think Willie and the Giants, and you tend to go a different direction, but Willie McCovey certainly holds his own. It was interesting. They were asking, like, among the 500 home run hitters, who's the one that gets kind of thought about the least? And somebody, you know, they talk about Willie McCovey maybe is on that list, and well, why? Well, it's because he was teammates with Willie Mays, and if you're teammates with Willie Mays, yeah, you might get kind of forgotten a little bit. But anyway, great career. There was one other little tidbit I wanted to share. It was just kind of interesting, but he was the first player in Major League Baseball to hit 2 home runs in the same inning twice. Like he's done it twice. He did it in 1973 and then in 1977. Hit 2 home runs in the same inning, and he did it 2 times. So I'm not sure how many times it's been done since then, but he was the first player in Major League Baseball to do that. So let me show you some cards. Just 4. Don't have very many this time, but I only have 4 of his cards, but I think a couple of them are significant cards for a couple of different reasons. So let me show you. We'll talk about it, and then we'll close this up. All right. So as I mentioned, just 4 cards, but the first one I have, and this is part of the reason I only have 4, is I don't start until 1969. 1969 Topps card for McCovey. This is his MVP year. So this is actually the current one that I have in my binder. Certainly, it's a good-looking card. It's actually the only card from 1969 I currently have in my binder, but it's a pretty important card for him. And if you know my videos, you know that there are kind of 2 things I look for in cards. One is just, is it a good-looking card? And secondly, is it a card that has some significance to it? I like it to be, if I can find one, if I can get the right one, get one that has some sort of significance. It's not their rookie card. That's McCovey's MVP year, so I like that one. I do have one with him not in Giants gear. This is his 75, of course. Good looking card. I like the set. I honestly don't think that belongs. I have a hard time putting a McCovey in that he's not in Giants gear. Back with the Giants in this one, 78. Of course, not his first one in Giants gear, back in Giants gear, but 78 is a good card as well. You begin to see these long rows of stats. Pretty fun. And the final card I have of his is his final Topps card. Now, 81 Fleer, they do have a McCovey card. But for Topps, this is the last one. The unfortunate thing is that they don't have his final stats on there, but if you looked really closely, I'm not going to try to get this to zoom in, it won't work, but his home run total on his 80 card is 520. So he just hit 1 home run there in 1980. He didn't even play the whole season. But this is a pretty significant card for that reason. If you like cards that show all or at least most of the stats, that's it. Actually, something I forgot to show you, I was going to show you, you're not going to be able to see it, but there's actually an error on this card. Actually, maybe you can see it. Maybe if I zoom in a little bit closer. 1963 stats, played for San Francisco. They have an I instead of an O. I'm sure I grew up collecting cards in the 80s and the early 90s. That means that card is worth millions if it has an error in it. But anyway, that's it for my McCovey collection, just the 4 cards. So my question is there another card I should pick up of McCovey? A good-looking card of his that's one of his Topps cards? Is there a year that you think is maybe more significant than 69, than his MVP year? Certainly, I think there are some ones you could consider. I think his 77, when he won Comeback Player of the Year. He was a home run leader in 63 and 68. There's another year as well, I think. Anyway, I can't come up with it off the top of my head, but that's Willie McCovey. So I appreciate any feedback, any thoughts you might have. I'm going to end this video here, and we'll see who's in store for next week. But until then, thanks for watching, commenting, all that stuff, and we'll see you next time.